All right, a little coffee Q&A. Today's topic, intermittent fasting. So reader question, I'm a busy nurse trying to lose weight and I feel like intermittent fasting could be good so that I don't have to eat. What are your thoughts? So great question. So let's cover one, what is intermittent fasting? Two, what are some of the health benefits? Three, what are some of the potential downsides? And then four, finish off, let's talk about when it is applicable for you, especially if you're male or female and these different things. So one, what is it? Ultimately, it's a tool that allows you to adhere to a caloric deficit. And it's doing that by restricting your eating window, meaning there's only a certain number of hours within the day, right, that you are allotting yourself to eat. And the rest of the time, not allowed to eat. So because of that, typically most people find themselves completely eliminating one, maybe two meals and or snacks, and therefore that's a reduction in calories and you're gonna lose weight. You do have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. So that's what it is. It's a tool. It's a form of tracking a number of hours of eating or non-eating. It's not that much different of a tool than you would use for tracking calories or macros or compliance or many of these different other modalities. So it's just another form. It's not a magic pill. It's nothing unique in that regard. It's just a simple way to say, this is when I start, this is when I stop. And ultimately, the reason some people like this is because it gives them an easy method for adherence. You can adhere to a time window fairly easily as opposed to having to figure out what it is that you're eating. And for that reason, a lot of people like it. So two, what are some of the health benefits? Now, most of the health benefits come from studies where it is a minimum of 24 hours up to 36-hour fast and time frame. So we're talking you'll eat dinner, you won't eat again until dinner the next day or even breakfast the following day. So it's a longer period of time. Now, some of the health benefits include autophagy, which is just cell regeneration, finding the body regenerates its cells during that time frame, restricting that food from being in the system. That is a huge one. Blood markers, there's some hormones, insulin sensitivity. So there are some health benefits that are definitely happening from this. But these are with a 24-hour plus fast. Now, most people, when they're trying to use this as a form of daily adherence, a tool for losing weight, they'll usually use a 16-8. That means you're in a fasted period for 16 hours and you're allowing yourself to eat for 8 hours. So your eating window is pretty small. So for most people, that may be something like, from 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. That 8-hour time frame. Not gonna eat anything before, not gonna eat anything after. Now it does typically restrict calories. You're cutting off that breakfast, that second snack, and maybe the late night snacking, and so therefore it can be extremely beneficial from that regard. Now, here's some of the downsides, right? So this is part number 3. The first one is that you could still overeat during that time frame. And so I think it's really important to still acquire the education, and I think that's where our coaching program is extremely beneficial, to understand what it is you're eating and how it's actually playing a role inside your body. So we can still overeat during that time frame. The second thing is oftentimes I've found most people that are doing intermittent fasting are not getting enough protein within their system. It's hard to get enough protein in your system when you're in a caloric deficit trying to lose weight, but trying to preserve as much muscle mass and physique as possible. You don't want to just be thin, right? You actually want to have your physique represent all the hard work that you've done in the gym. Nobody wants to be what's considered skinny fat these days if you're working this hard, right? No body shame whatsoever. Definitely love you regardless of whatever it is. Self-love is key, but I want to point that out. And so it's really challenging for a lot of people to get enough protein, just spaced out even, or in big block meals when that eating window is small, all right? So that's challenge number 2. Challenge number 3, it depends on when you're working out. If you're someone that has to work out first thing in the morning, it's ideal to have food within your system to start repairing and rebuilding your muscles within a 90-minute time frame if possible. And so if we're not able to then even eat all the way until 11 and we had a 5 or a 6 a.m. workout, that can be really challenging. So you may then bump your fasted window, your eating window up. But then if you're starting out your meal at 6 a.m., you're done by 3. And that can be really hard for people with late night snacking and just wanting to eat dinner and socialize. So it can be challenging within that regard. So those are just some of the challenges I've seen. But the actual issue that I've seen with a lot of people, and it's typically women, is that I found that they have more sensitive hormonal systems. And maybe that's because of the cycle, just a bunch of different factors in the way that men are different than women. Sorry, women, but I find that men can fast a little bit easier, especially with an ectomorph body type as opposed to an endomorph or whatnot. And it probably just has to do with the way that the metabolism is needing more fuel or not needing more fuel, food being fuel on a regular basis. So typically women have more sensitive hormonal systems, and it just becomes a higher level of fatigue and more stress. And I think that's the big thing to think about. Anytime you're in a caloric deficit, it's a form of stress on the body. And when you factor in all the physiological stressors that you have in your life, again, this was a nurse who sent this. So a nursing job, I can't imagine. Deep empathy and appreciation for what you do, because that's probably a lot of stress. And then you factor in a significant other and kids and bills, and maybe you haven't gotten the greatest sleep, and you're training, another form of stressor. Like, all these physiological stressors add up. And then we're gonna restrict calories, but on top of that, you're gonna do it by not eating for a longer period of time, when you need your body to actually start repairing itself from these workouts. And you actually need to try and create some balance within your system. So it's something to be really mindful of, and it's why I rarely recommend intermittent fasting for hardly any clients, because I want you to actually learn how to eat. I want you to actually have control over what a meal looks like and be able to have these other tools that last you beyond the diet. Really, the real work, the real journey begins the moment you have achieved your weight loss goal, because now you have to learn how to sustain. And I'm not sure that most people want to be doing intermittent fasting for the rest of their lives. And so we need to learn how to eat in that time frame. But let's bring it to the last point. When is it beneficial? Who is it for? Personally, I find it's really beneficial for clients that travel a lot for work. This is the only few times that I've ever recommended it. So if you're going on a vacation, this is ideal for you too. If you're gonna have one of those crazy long travel days where you're probably just gonna be grabbing anything at the airports that are unhealthy, and you're fatigued, so your ghrelin is gonna be higher, your stress is gonna be higher, you're gonna be wanting to grab these types of foods that satiate you, right? Because a lot of people, up to 80%, find themselves being stress eaters. And so when you're a stress eater, you go for the comfort food, typically that triggers unconscious memories from when you were a kid, because that's when you didn't have stress to this level of your life and you felt comfortable. So it reminds you, and it's usually unconscious, of a feeling of comfort. And so this is when it can be ideal. We fast all day and then we eat at night. Or when you're traveling and you're on vacation, you might, sleep in a little bit, go enjoy different things throughout the day, and then have your first meal at around 11 a.m. and then not have your second one until dinner time. Yes, we may not be getting as much veggies or protein or fiber as we would ideally like during that time frame, but our goal is to restrict enough calories by just controlling the eating window so we can enjoy these unique restaurants and places and be able to partake. And so this is when it can be really beneficial. Or if you're constantly hopping time zones. I've got a few clients that are on an airplane literally 200 days out of the year. Mind-blowing to me. And so this is where it can be extremely beneficial. And we time it based on those flights, those patterns, and what is at those hotels, right? The other one can be shift work. If you are not in a place where you need extreme cognitive focus for multiple days on end, a firefighter or something like that, where it's physically, happening all time, I would be mindful of that. But there's proof that you can actually be more tapped in and in tune when you're in a state of intermittent fasting. And so it can work well with specific types of shift work. So those are my recommendations of when it happens, what it is, when to apply. But in general, for most of our Gen Pop, if that's you and you're just trying to lose weight, learn how to eat. And I can't encourage you to do that any better or any enough. Get whole foods more than anything else. So hit me with any of your questions. Looking forward to answering them on here. So you can just message me, Joseph at truthtransformation.com, or here, just DM me.